Hello everyone and welcome back to Double Play Baseball. In today's video, Ryan and I are going to recap the Tampa Bay Rays 2022 offseason as well as preview their 2023 campaign. Ryan, the Rays had an interesting offseason. Why don't you break it down for us?
Yeah, so let's go to talk about their additions/extensions that they had. They really only had one addition, and it was Zach Eflin, who got the largest free agent contract in franchise history. So they had him. They assigned Yandy Diaz, Jeffrey Springs, and Peter Fairbanks, all 2 extensions, and then outside of that, that's it. They didn't really do much on the additions or keeping side, and they lost Kevin Kiermaier, Ji-Man Choi, Corey Kluber, Brooks Raley, Zunino, David Peralta, Nick Anderson, and Matt Whistler. So kind of they didn't do much adding to their team, and they lost some guys who have been part of this franchise for a while, in guys like Ji-Man Choi, Kevin Kiermaier, Mike Zunino. And then some newer faces as well they lost. So which one of these is the biggest addition or subtraction for them?
I've said on multiple different videos that I like the addition of Zach Eflin. I thought that he was a Rays fit, and I think I actually predicted that one of him signing with the Rays. I couldn't remember whether I picked him signing with the Rays or the Diamondbacks. I forget, but I like the addition, at least, of them bringing him in. But there's just so many subtractions that it's hard not to pick one of those. So I don't have a specific one, and we'll get into my grade overall, but I guess Zach Eflin, although there's just so many subtractions that it feels weird to pick their lone addition.
Yeah, I went on the subtraction side. I think it's a combination of losing Brooks Raley, who was great in relief last year. He pitched 53 innings for the team. And then all of the bats, Kiermaier, Choi, Zunino, Peralta, etc. Just because they didn't add anyone on either end to replace. They didn't add anyone in the bullpen. And I know the Rays factory, they always find people to produce, but they didn't add anyone in the bullpen. They didn't add any bats to replace those guys that they lost. And I think it's tough to find this many productive guys. That the Rays have shown that they can find productive guys, of guys that you're not expecting, but that's a lot of subtractions. And I think they were right in the middle of offseason or offensive ranks last season, and they lost some of those pieces. So, looking at their lineup, I do like their top 4, and Brandon Lau, Randy Arozarena, Wander Franco, and Yandy Diaz. And then you also have Christian Bethancourt toward the end that I kind of like. I think he's a little underrated hitter. Just not a fan of the depth in the lineup. So to take a middle of the pack offensive team that barely got you to the playoffs last year, and then just didn't perform in the playoffs last year. They scored, I think, 1 run on like a Jose Siri home run in those 2 games against the Guardians. So to take that offense and kind of do nothing and actually maybe get worse on paper, it's just tough. And I think the combination of losing those guys will be important for them in 2023.
Yeah, I have no worries that. Not that I don't have any worries, but I do believe that they will find guys to fill in, whether it's in the rotation or in the bullpen. Like they're always finding pitchers seemingly out of nowhere, but the offense was not great last year, really bad in the playoffs. Like the reason that they were not able to advance, and they didn't sign anyone. I mean, that's why to get into my grade, I gave them a D, because it's like they're not even trying to compete offensively, because the Rays have been a World Series contender at least for a couple years. Last year, they snuck their way into the playoffs, but this year, they didn't add anyone to try and make themselves any better. And, I know the Rays are a small market team, but last offseason, they offered hundreds of millions of dollars to Freddie Freeman. Didn't get him, obviously, he went to the Dodgers, and I thought, wow, that's such a great sign for the Rays. They're trying to reel in the big fish. They didn't even go to the smaller pond this time. They bring in Zach Eflin, and the rest of the offense, they don't make a single change to it. So I gave him a D because it was a surprising inactive offseason for me, and just don't like the way that this lineup is shaping up because they didn't add a single hitter.
I actually went with a C, so maybe it was not harsh enough, because we try and look at this offseason like in a tunnel, like how did they add, what did they add, what they lose. But I also do like the focus on the current guys, because if you look at their lineup, I think it's not bad. I mentioned those 5 that I like at the top of the order, and I'm just not sure. I'm kind of in disagreement with you about Eflin. I'm not sure if Eflin's worthy of being the largest free agency contract in franchise history.
I didn't say he's worthy of that, but also, they also haven't signed a whole, their previous free agent contracts weren't that big, and I'm not saying that I like how much money they gave him, but I do like him as a player, and I think he fits in their rotation pretty well.
Yeah, but I you're right, and I just think it wasn't necessarily what they needed. And you mentioned the lineup of all that they lost, and they've shown that they could be productive on the pitching end with barely scoring a run in that series. They also did barely gave up any runs, and I know the Guardians aren't known as some offensive powerhouse, but they've got pitching, and McClanahan was the starter in the All-Star game, and hopefully you get Glasnow healthy. So I think pitching wasn't really what they needed, and just overall, I do like their lineup and kind of what they have, but adding some smaller guys would have been beneficial to this team, and I think just adding some more production would have made you another playoff team, and I think now they're kind of on the fence, and we could talk about what to expect, but overall, I think it was an okay offseason.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not as confident about this as I am in the Red Sox episode, which I think is out by now, so you can go watch it, but I don't think the Rays are making the playoffs. And it feels weird to say because they've been a perennial playoff team for quite some time, and you almost look back at their last decade or so, and I'm honestly surprised they didn't win a World Series, but I think that their time is kind of coming to an end if they don't start making more moves. I don't think this small ball effect is going to work anymore with the roster and the lineup that they have right now. So I don't think they're making the playoffs. I'd hope that next offseason they could be more active, but wasn't a fan of their offseason. They barely made it last year. So, I mean, kind of process of elimination, I think that they're not going to make it this year either.
Yeah, I'm expecting a battle for third place in the division with the Orioles, and I also I think if I'm predicting right now, I think they are going to miss the playoffs. That's kind of what I'm leaning towards predicting, but I do see a path where they can make it, and there's kind of a open third spot for me in the playoffs, kind of going through our rough drafts of predictions, and I'm not like super confident of a third wildcard team in the American League as I am with the National League. I mean, you got the 3 NL East teams, and then 2 NL West. Those are going to make up your 3 wildcard teams, it seems. But with the American League, I think there's a path where the Rays can sneak into the third wildcard if the Orioles regress, if the Rangers or Angels don't play like they have a ceiling to. So there's an open third wildcard team that I think the Rays can sneak in. But if I had to predict, I'm going to say they miss out on it.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Tyler Glasnow a little bit ago. He was going to be my prediction. I was going to make some variable prediction about, maybe not him winning a Cy Young, but I thought he could have come in the top 3 for American League Cy Young. Unfortunately, goes down with yet another injury. He's kind of becoming one of those players where it's happening on a routine basis, and unfortunately, we kind of have to worry about injury with him every year. So I switched gears a little bit, and I don't like this prediction quite as much because I was really locked in on Glasnow, but I'm going to say that Wander Franco cements himself as a top 5 shortstop in baseball this year. I think he's going to have a top 5 season, and you look at the shortstops, and I think there's 6 guys maybe going to be vying for that top 5 spot. You have Lindor, you have Correa, you have Trey Turner, you have Corey Seager, Wander Franco, and Xander Bogaerts, who we mentioned in the Red Sox episode, is a departure. I think Wander's got a pretty good shot at ending up somewhere in everyone's top 5 rankings at the end of the year, because I think hopefully you have a full healthy season from him, and if we do get that, we know how good he can be, so I think he ends up top 5.
I went with, despite all the losses that they had this offseason, I think they're still going to be in the top half of baseball in pitching and hitting. They were 15th in WRC Plus last year, their lineup, and 13th in pitching ERA, so I think despite that, I think they're going to be right around that middle of the pack, and I think they'll get into the top half of the league in both of those statistics.
I really like their rotation still. Like, I know that they lost some guys, and they didn't bring anyone in the lineup, which was my biggest harp on them, but I still really, really, really like their starting pitching rotation. It helps when Glasnow's healthy, because then you've got McClanahan, Glasnow, Eflin, Drew Rasmussen, and you figure out what you want to do with the 5 spot. I don't know who they have listed there right now, but they also have Shane Baz coming back from injury, who was the second best pitching prospect in baseball last year, came up and made some waves with the major league squad. So, I mean, those are 5 guys that I really like, and you already know that the Rays are going to find someone else as well to throw in there. So I still really like the rotation if they can stay injury-free. I know we're seeing some stuff with Glasnow early, but if you can have McClanahan for a full season, if Eflin can stay healthy, and Same with some of these other guys. I still really like the rotation, and I still want to believe in the Rays. I want them to be able to be back in the playoffs because it's entertaining when the Rays are good. I'm not sure how I'm feeling about their lineup this year.
Yeah, we'll see how it ends up for the Rays in this season. If you're a Rays fan, leave us a comment down below. What are you expecting for the Rays this season? Are they going to make the playoffs? Are you a little lower on them? Let's hear it. And make sure you leave this video a like, a comment, a subscribe as well. We'd really appreciate it. Help our channel. And if you want to, go ahead and check out any of our other season previews for all our teams or some of our past videos that we have made. We did a big positional ranking series earlier in this offseason. So if you want to see where we have your Rays players ranked, go ahead and check those out as well. So make sure you subscribe, stick around for some more baseball content throughout this entire season. But with that, we've been Double Play. I'm Ryan, that's Jack. Thank you guys for watching, and see you next time.